This
This
conference will now
conference
be
will now be
recorded.
recorded.
All right, let's go. We're gonna get this rolling. Why don't you put that on here, man? Morning, Jason.
Good morning. Little, not as professional, but I had a little chopstick in the old dryer.
Well,
incident.
it'll happen.
No, thanks. Please don't.
Did they say it?
Oh, yeah, it was perfect. It landed right in my yard, and I'm really thrilled about it. I'm like, Finn, it's not your birthday, but there's more sand for you.
Okay, welcome to our guests. I'm gonna open this special town board meeting. Today's session is an hour and a half in length. We're gonna start our discussions and directions as it applies to the short-term rental regulations associated with the moratorium, which is slated now to end September 1st. It might be the 6th, I'm not sure, however, that 6 month, but it's early in September. Before we start, I guess I feel compelled to mention to everyone, there will be varied opinions on where we each have expectations of this decision process to go. Certainly, we all have initiatives that want to help with the housing market. We still have to recognize a sustainable economic environment. We are looking to be both fair and justified in the directions we go to sustain our community as a whole. So there are varied objectives that we all have. And I ask you all just to be as fair as possible moving forward and think of all the different outcomes that will come from our decision process. I look at our current short-term rental as making many improvements over initial. We've gotten a handle on complaints. We have contact people now. Long story short, a lot of what we're going to accomplish through these next 4 or 5 sessions is in many ways an experiment in trying to appeal to community concerns and STR owner concerns. So our challenges are huge. I ask you to be as responsible as you can, and let's work together and try to make this a very good process. With that being said, I'd like a little input before we start. As I see it, there are areas in the town outside the village. So those of you that are here, please understand our challenge, if you will, is to only address town outside village. Toward the end of this process, I suspect the village and the town will come together to address those areas where we abut one another. So as we move forward, here's how I personally look at the areas we should attack first. The first one that I think is easiest, if you will, is gateway corridors in town outside village. Once we discuss that, I see us moving into planned developments, which certainly have boundaries within their own descriptions that makes our process easier. And then from there, I think we might move on to rural countryside and town residential, and we'll leave it north and south lakes for last. But Emily, I'm embarrassed if I've forgotten any delineation.
You forgot one, Old Military Corridor,
Okay, that's right, because
and that can probably go after planned development.
Old Military, okay. So if that fits, that's how I'd like to start this morning, unless there's objections. Also here today are Mike and Darcy from Code Enforcement. Certainly our experts in zoning and what we have going on, they'll be critical to this process. So thanks for attending. All right,
And Rick is up there.
Morning, Rick.
Rick, we're sorry that you're fighting the old COVID, and if you need to leave and come back and so forth, do whatever you gotta do, buddy. Best to your recovery. How do you want to get started, Emily?
Well, I mean, Gateway Corridor, so there's, I think it's only, I shouldn't say only, because I forgot about Ray Brook. We don't have the Ray Brook map up.
But I have a small version of it here. You know I wouldn't travel without Raybrook.
So this is the town village line right here. So we'd be talking about Saranac, I'm in the right direction, right? Saranac-
Yes.
Saranac Ave out. But it does include Fawn Ridge, which there are some like residences in here, which is why originally the current law says like you have to front on Saranac Ave. And then this must be state land starting down here.
Yes.
So that's the only portion of Gateway Corridor that's in Lake Placid, and then Raybrook, you probably did bring away the
I left the tape there if you want to tape it up, but,
And there's some big chunks of land in Gateway Corridor and Raybrook,
Yes, sir.
right.
which does, that. So that's like one that does make me a little bit nervous, because if someone were to put a housing development in there, they could all be short-term rentals.
Currently, that's true. What we're looking at is primarily vacant land over there.
Yeah.
The major part of that Raybrook is now a recreation park. So it has limited sites. I don't think it's developed to its potential. I don't know if the property is currently for sale or not, but it represents about half of that corridor area.
That's across from the golf course, right?
That's right. Should we talk about, as we've been discussing this, the justification for leaving short-term rentals open in gateway corridors? And it has to do with the combination of commercial districts and a place where business typically exists.
Yeah, or what are allowable conditional uses.
Right,
And an allowable conditional use in this district is hotel.
right. So in my mind, that's what helps justify it.
Yeah.
I mean, during Dean's presentation, he brought all that up.
Right.
Which is good. And as you said earlier, we're kind of not starting over, but backing up a little bit. So it would be a good idea to explain it, but Dean did.
Right,
And you know, I think we all have a grasp of why. We had a grasp of why before, and Dean revisiting that particular part of the gateway, the reasons for the gateway, I think we're covered.
okay. Let's talk about boundaries of gateway going the other way, Emily, if you would.
Yeah, I was thinking, I actually didn't think it went so far on Cascade Road. So this is the town village line right here.
Okay.
And this is Cascade Road.
And does it go as far as Old Mountain Road?
No,
No.
because you turn, it turns.
But
into a road.
does it stop on that hill?
No.
It goes
It
to,
doesn't go past the gyms.
No, that's it.
okay. It doesn't go past what, Mike?
The gyms.
I think it
Okay.
stops at Aaron Stone's business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
No, that's not true. It
No.
stops before that.
Yeah, before that.
Andre Carl's
Yeah, we've had
property.
that
Oh,
discussion
right.
before.
Mhm.
Across
Oh, 'cause you
from
can
the
have a
airport.
sign.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right across from the airport, we're above, cut above.
Okay,
That's basically the beginning going.
It stops at Andres or Andres
No, it
included?
stops.
Andres
Cut
is
above.
in
Before.
town residential.
Okay,
The property before
Before that.
Andre is Gateway.
okay.
so for the benefit of the public that's here, Emily brought up the concern, like it might apply someday in Raybrook if there were a planned development or a development came into a lot of that vacant property. It might be a good segue into our next item of planned developments, so that most developments of that nature would come in front of a public hearing. So at that point, I'd like to substantiate that amendments can always be made to this process we're going through, right or wrong.
Correct, but
Okay.
it takes a little time.
Right,
And using the term plan development and subdivision are two different terms.
exactly.
Plan development has different rules than a basic subdivision. Depends on who's doing the subdivision, if they want to put deed restrictions and so forth, it gets very complicated. But
Would it be pertinent then to now bring up the point that Dean had the other night in justifying different decisions based on lot size? What, listen, this is our forum to bring it up, that's why you're here.
all right.
Yeah, so if there are opinions on that, because personally I take exception with that because we have areas where there have been no complaints and the system works. So if by chance we are gonna use half-acre lots as not desirable for rentals, I'd like to hear about it now. For me, it is not a determining factor because we are talking about,
I think what you're trying to say, I agree with you. I don't think lot size should be a determining factor.
It's just,
There's more
you're saying
space.
location would be the
Location,
driving.
Location would be.
yes.
So that's why I guess when we're diving into this conversation, and I say with all due respect, I guess that's where I'm getting lost in the weeds, whereas I'm thinking, are we looking at more macro as far as the section and saying what's appropriate? I guess, because that half acre, like, to me, and the feedback that I received is that I'm thinking zones in general, like if I'm coming in, like, where does the board feel it's most appropriate or most beneficial or more of a balance?
Right, I don't think that's the thing, and that's the point. We've got a lot of other factors to look at, and I don't think we should just look at lot size and say, boom, okay, so anything that's this lot size or smaller, we throw out and you're done. We've got to look at other factors. So I'm with you there, I don't agree with the lot size as the first thing to look at.
in town outside village.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your location statement holds a lot of validity.
Yeah, and that's how I've looked at this whole entire
The only
process.
place that
And those are kind of nuances.
Gateway is the only, in
In
town,
the village area.
in the village,
Right,
the gateway corridor, the old military corridor, you can have less than half an acre. In those.
right.
Everywhere else in the town residential and everything else is a half acre.
Okay,
Yeah, but still, any size lot.
right.
The size of the lot, we don't, as far as the determination of what we're determining in these meetings, should not be the first factor to look at.
For me, agreed. I'm
We don't
sorry,
do that, okay.
record your questions if
Okay.
we're lucky. And please understand, this is
It's not a question, but yeah.
this is a
your
town
workshop,
meeting.
Yeah.
And if it applies to zoning or planning, separate for right now.
Okay.
Yep. Fair statement, Mike?
Come talk to us after this is over.
Right. And we don't mean to exclude you, it's
No,
just
I
that
understand.
we need to move forward.
Sure.
Okay, so basically, is everyone comfortable coming to a decision on Gateway Corridor?
Meaning,
With what's being proposed, with that you can have an unhosted rental.
Right.
And multiple unhosted rentals.
Which is
currently
that's
what
current.
it is.
okay, and it goes, and this is the purple that extends all the way out to Raybrook.
Yep, that first map.
Okay,
But I will say that those pieces in Raybrook make me nervous because Raybrook is a great place for housing. And it makes me nervous that someone could just develop a whole community of short-term, wouldn't be a community, whole hotel of short-term rentals in Raybrook.
so how do we parse that out?
So you could change that zoning, but the only problem is that if it's one parcel, so that's why it's all zoned that way.
Yes,
Like, so if it was said it was subdivided, then it would only be those front parcels that were Gateway Corridor, but because they're one parcel, the whole piece is Gateway Corridor. With the idea in 2011 that this would be a good place for development.
Okay.
I get it. So,
I just want to say, go ahead, Rick.
So, sorry for my voice. Hopefully you can understand me. So you take Dana Perrier's property over in Raybrook
yes,
and somebody buys that, puts a short-term rental on it. It's 10 acres or so. I think that's where the half acre might be helpful, because now you can't subdivide that up into quarter acre lots and put a whole little community of short-term rentals. Is there a prevention to that?
well, I can address it this way, and Darcy can pull up a map to say, I believe almost all of that area is moderate intensity that needs, put it this way,
Yeah, the
at
88
least
might
half of it
jump us.
is moderate intensity, which needs 3 acres or more. So the low intensity acreage is currently commercially zoned right now.
No commercial.
Well,
And there's no building of development of short-term rentals. There's building a development of single-family homes. People have the right to use their property according to state laws the way they wish. And if you regulate the short-term rental aspect of it, you can't regulate unless
the lot
developer-
size,
Well, the lot sizes will be determined by the APA and our zoning.
right,
But you're building homes, you're not building short-term rentals.
Exactly.
Well, I'm saying
And
if we
if one
allow
person, if one person buys that whole lot, a big lot, and puts all short-term rentals and owns them all, they're no longer individual short-term rentals. That's a hotel, motel, whatever you want to call it.
But I'm saying that we're not protecting that potential area for development. Like in Raybrook, we always talk about how that's like a potential for affordable housing development. It just makes me nervous. I'm not saying that, and like, that's why the first slide took off Fawn Ridge and some other places. But I that's just my opinion. I'm not gonna
I
say
don't know
no
how you
to
can
it.
protect something that you can't, so.
Well, that's what we're doing with this.
It's just deciding. So what would be your solution? Again, you said rezone it, but I
Yeah,
don't,
rezone it. But
to what?
you can't- The town residential, but that's not, it kind of defeats the purpose
because
of,
it breaks this apart up.
yeah.
Because it goes.
And then you would have town residential like on the front, so you couldn't have a business on the front, on like the street.
right, and that
you need that.
defeats
The
the,
purpose of Gateway Corridor.
right,
We need them to subdivide it.
well,
But in reality, like, what can we do with the current?
In reality, I guess you just.
right now, nothing.
Yeah, and
That's my point.
May-
You can't do anything right now.
Well-
Until somebody comes with something and has a plan that you can then decide.
we can't,
Well, again,
it
we
would just
can,
be approved. There's nothing to stop a subdivision from being approved in there.
could be, sure, they still gotta come to review board. You
Yeah,
can't
no, but
just-
why would it get stopped? A subdivision in Gateway Corridor.
I'm just saying, it would do, depending on what they want to put there.
Like a wild
Maybe some
safari preserve.
lot sizes and so forth, if it's gonna be a PD or if it's just gonna be a subdivision, we don't know. Again, it's hard to regulate something that doesn't exist, so.
Right.
This is kind of.
At the current time, I don't see with looking down the road for that particular,
And that property's been available for a long time,
I agree.
and nobody has done anything
No
in all
one's
these
jumped
years
at it.
now, maybe, we'll see.
Is it for sale? Not for sale.
There's a
Right
big
now-
chunk of it that's-
right now, no water is a deterrent.
Right.
But then that begs I think circles into what Emily was saying, is that the only way that someone wants to do that, they would have to generate some sort of revenue in order to incur the cost of putting water put into it.
Yeah,
So I guess what I'm asking is that, obviously, your heart is in Raybrook, the big RV. Are you looking for it to have an opportunity to be developed more? What is you think is the residents' vision of that strip in Raybrook? That what we could do to help facilitate what they feel is the vision for that strip? Because there's opportunity and you know it.
Well, of course
But what do they want? What can you help them achieve?
I'm not sure the long-term vision for Raybrook applies to this progression, if you will, because there are certainly very limited sources for big developments in Raybrook. They are small lots, this being the the biggest one and across the road. The others are very small lots and they are basically replacement situations. Ken Hunt does own a sizable amount on Mackenzie Pond Road, but if you go farther down the road where Schieffer's development is, those are big lots. There's distance between them. In my opinion, short-term rentals don't deter the development of that area. But I look at everything. I don't look at just a complaint menu. I look at economic sustainability, if you will. But I'm more sided than you as well. I don't believe we can make a decision on the future of these lots that have been on the market for 15 years or more. I think our plan for Gateway Corridor is solid for where we're at now.
What do you think is the probability if, the current recommendation gets implemented, or maybe something a little bit more stringent, the probability of STR development being pushed into this area?
Well, I'll say it I'd like to say it straight up. If the village cuts out 130 STRs in the neighborhoods with their vision for saving neighborhoods, probably some of the sales will let big places go and maybe they will develop in Raybrook. So do you want to say yes to that or no to that?
I guess it's,
Because you're wearing two hats right now.
well, so I think my stance is I'm very aggressive regarding short-term rentals. And there seems to be, a kind of mindset of viewing homes as a place to live as opposed to investments. So that's going to inform my whole entire approach.
Sure.
So it's hard to tell this lot owner, you have to build just residential houses unless we rezone it to, but it's not broken out. But I don't know. I know it's like one of those.
All of this section is done. There's no more to happen there.
Okay, so.
Okay. All of this is basically done. So we're talking about three owners of property.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just throwing my perspective, my questions. This is where I'm deferring to
Yeah,
you.
I get it. We need everybody's input.
Well, we don't, it's a classic case of we have no idea what's going to happen out there.
That's right.
And why should we not go with the way it is, leave it until we see.
Yeah.
Like you said, we can make amendments, we can do things. And right now, there's a good point, it's been on the market for 15 years. If the village, as you said, if the village decides to go one way, it may force it that way. We don't know, may.
Right.
Okay. So you're just saying
There's
establishing.
all these unknowns, we could come up with 15 different scenarios, but right now, none of them we can justify.
And do I look at it as fair to go to these big lot owners now and put restrictions on there and zone it out like that?
No,
I don't like
I
it.
mean, they haven't been able to sell for 15 years. Why tell them now, you haven't got a chance of selling it
Yeah.
anyway.
And I understand the concerns. I get it. But we're looking down the road to something that is not within our grasp right now.
Because that's, from my perspective, and I'll definitely step back and let the professionals speak. It's just, I guess it's from a board level perspective, at what point are we going to draw a hard line to say, we're going to take a stand, and there may be several property owners that are going to be caught in the crosshairs of what would be, from their perspective, unfair in order to preserve or provides opportunities for development.
Maybe a property owner decides he wants deed restrictions and doesn't want STRs.
Right. I understand what you're saying, and we do have to get to that point. I don't think this is the point.
You don't think it's this district?
You don't think
it's
Raybrook?
like town residential?
Yes, yeah, I don't think,
Okay.
gateway corridors, I don't think is the place to draw the hard line. Yes, I agree with you, we're gonna have to draw some hard lines someplace. This isn't it, to me,
Okay.
to me.
Yeah, and I see that, like, I hear Emily's argument, and then the sticking point is, we can just do this so we can establish, so this is actually a thing, correct?
Right.
Like, this is now, it would be an actual designation in this area, where it's not before.
Yeah, this is current.
This is the existing.
Yeah.
All this other stuff was Dean's proposals, based on comments.
I just see purple.
Where you're seeing purple is current.
Let me just go back up here and make, there's,
That's right. That's where I wish this was hanging up there, because this is the one that counts. This is the
Should we put
real
it up?
zoning map. Well,
So we put it right next to the other side of the
I
flag,
got no place to,
on the left of the
holes in
flag.
the wall there.
They're coming up with this wall.
And plus, we gotta be careful, because this is our only one.
And Dean took his pater's tape, so we don't have
Yeah.
that.
So
Come on, team.
I'm suggesting our current zoning is effective and efficient, and yes, you can realign some things and, say these districts we don't want, what we want, or we want to limit, however you want to go. But I think keeping the current zoning as is, and then applying whatever regulations for short-term rentals you want in certain zones is the way to go. Whether you want more of them, less of them, that's up to you guys.
Like I said, this is.
Again,
yeah.
we're not regulating the use, we're regulating the users. And we're telling people how they can use their property, who can use it, how often, all those other rules that we have to regulate. No, and
Yeah, number of permits, so on and so forth, is that what you're saying?
again, go with number of permit, however you feel,
Okay.
this is more regular, but I don't think we need to rewrite, the book here. We already have a fairly robust, zoning law or rules in town already, in the village, and I think they're working. So, just my opinion.
Emily, do you feel that's the case, that the current existing zoning is sufficiently not to?
no, I
Articulate
understand
changes.
what you're saying, but the problem is that there's all these exceptions. And so Mike just wants it in text, like he said, okay, then make the exceptions in text, like say if no hosted short-term rentals in town residential and Deerwood Hills. Like he doesn't want it in a map, he wants it just.
So if you look at
text.
the language in the current code, each district that's outlined in colors here has language that says what's permitted use and
Yes.
what's conditional use.
Mhm.
And it can be added, amended, changed to the use, and that, based on what we have already. You don't have to, and yes, you want to.
We don't have to
The
change
problem-
zoning.
The
No.
problem is that not everything fits, like that's why there's.
Well,
an
nothing's
exception.
perfect, but again, you can write it into the section and say, in this section of this, zoning district, you can't have them, or you can have them, or whatever
I just perceive this as a master class in this sort of subject area, and having you two, it's fantastic. So the gateway corridor, does that resolve, because there's a lot of conversations in the village, but it's like, oh, it's in the village, it's zone commercial, but there's no commercial.
There's no commercial.
I know, that's what I'm saying, there needs to be an educational process.
The
I think
only
that we need.
permitted use in every zoning district on this map is single family and two-family. Every district, right? Everything else is a conditional use. Any business is a conditional use. They changed it years ago when this code came out in 2011. They used to have some, C1, C2, C3 for different commercial.
Thank you very much. I just, there is other language or language that's being used in the community that when they come to you, you're like,
And I'll remind
This is the
everybody
100th
again
time
that
I've seen
there is no way now to treat short-term rentals as businesses. New York State realty law does not allow that. The building codes of New York State do not allow that. You cannot treat them differently. They are single-family homes being used by the owner
sure,
to do what they want to do.
sure.
So,
So, all right. Then I'm with you on this one until something else changes.
exactly.
So we're good there.
So the last aspect then about gateway corridors is numbers of days rented or open. And as everyone knows, we're trying to get away from a system that does not work for this department right here. So in the proposal of gateway corridors,
Doesn't have a limit.
no limit.
now.
So I look at it as low hanging fruit, it's gateway corridor, no limit. And that takes away, that's a lot of the different zones, right? So is that we're moving forward, we all agree on that? Is that-
Yes.
Right, so I think that can help inform future conversations.
Yeah, the only, Mike and Darcy are gonna kill me. The only thing
Stand back.
This is the best one ever.
is that, so, the current law says it has to front on Cascade Road because we're trying to protect like the area from, like this is you know those the houses that are behind Elwishon?
Mhm.
That's what this is.
Skunk Hollow.
Yeah.
Where it's called.
Yes. That's
Right.
right.
Skunk Hollow.
So all of a sudden, Skunk Hollow would be open season for short-term rentals.
Because it's within the corridor.
Yeah.
So the corridor, what, please refresh me real quick. How far away from the main road?
It's supposed to be frontage on the main road.
But I see,
But
I see properties that are kind of, there's ends here back.
On that 400 Bridge Road, there's already businesses. Operating GNS has a shop.
Right.
Yeah,
And they're
there's-
actually moving their shop down the road to give that building to Aubuchon for storage. So
Okay.
again, it's not
But we don't necessarily.
strictly residential.
Yeah.
You know, there's already things going on there.
But we don't need to make it STR. It could stay where it is. We
Just
But
leave it
but
as
it's in
is.
the corridor, we can't do
Yeah,
anything
but
about
if
it.
we're trying to match it to plans, the zoning districts, then it has to go.
And as Mike said, I think I understand what the point, but we have to, I'm
Or we
all
could
for
rezone
matching
it to
it.
town residential, which I don't know why it wasn't town residential.
Yeah, but
But we have Hall Rock and GNS
Yeah, but
there.
they could stay. I don't know, that's just one thing I would point out too, I just like to point out things. that-
Yep.
thank you.
Yeah.
Good to see you too.
A lot of the property there,
Mhm.
which will say, is commercially zoned.
It's not
What?
It has conditional
Like the
use,
house that I
right?
lived in was
commercial
commercially zoned.
zone.
See, this is I think it's an educational
Yeah.
process we need from the board.
Everyone is listening, there's nothing that's commercially zoned,
Yes.
everything is maybe residentially zoned.
Right.
Right.
Because the only allowable uses are every
Single
district,
family.
single and two family.
Right.
If you go to three, you gotta go to 3
Yes,
Right.
Old Rock has a property that he uses for his business.
Yes.
And
GNS
GNS
has two properties there that they use for their business. And whoever else.
So that butts
Again,
up,
there are properties that are being used.
but that butts up against
They've been there for-
below the peripheral.
But,
100 years.
yeah, I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
No.
See all of these.
Who are you
Can't this-
saving?
Can't this be all separate, all these?
Well,
properties?
but this isn't even fronting on, I mean,
Yeah,
to
that's-
me, I would separate, that's what I did. I said you had to front on Saranac, yeah. But we, like, to
yeah,
Mike's
but,
point,
This is even, this is, this, I would think this would be,
That's
and these
this is
would be.
Obashan.
that's Obuchon.
Yeah,
in the-
Obashan. Yeah, but these, what I'm talking about here, wire, like, starting here to, we'll just say here, because this one actually touches it. So how come this isn't protected here? That does
Well, it
not
is
actually
now.
touch.
Cross the road and ask yourself
So this
that
is,
question.
Yeah,
What's that?
Same thing.
Cross the road and ask yourself, why does it go through the, it
Because
affronts
it's
that
not,
main.
because it's not subdivided.
it's not subdivided, that's
Yeah,
why.
This,
It's the
there
same
are
situation with this.
There are lots up front, and then these are, there's two businesses back here.
But business doesn't necessarily need to be STRs.
I think with what's in front of us, to get hung up on that gateway corridor right now,
Well, my only suggestion, I'm sorry, and we're taking it out of, so we're, sorry.
Like
I just
apologize.
want, I want everyone to be aware of what's gonna
Exactly,
change,
that's right,
and that's
exactly.
gonna change.
Yeah, that's
Gonna
would be
change.
my recommendation, is that does not get included when it does that little loop, because that's not on,
Yeah,
they're not.
So you
As
can
we said,
rezone
we
that.
gotta rezone and everything, leave it, this is not the place to draw the line, I don't think. Leave the purple as it is.
I would have to push back against that, but that, I'm just one, and just a comment.
That's fine,
Rick, any input from you, buddy?
if you can talk.
Yeah, I there's been so many topics that I'm sort of lost. But, the only comment I really have is the Mike and Darcy's recommendations that were sent out on May 19th included the removal of the term limits, the 90-day, the 120, and also the permit process, which I think can be globally covered and say, okay, this is what we're accepting. Since we can't monitor it or enforce it anyhow. But regarding the gateway, I'm in favor of just maintaining what we have. So if that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so that's 3, so we can move on.
Okay, so gateway corridor is now, we'll call it open to short-term rentals, unlimited days.
Which it was what it is now.
Right.
Except for now, we're putting Skunk Hollow into it.
Right.
But do we are we just doing informal discussion?
Which isn't really true. I mean, like you said, the law now says, yes, gateway corridor if you're fronting on that. So, I mean, you could leave that language.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, I got you.
That's how it is.
But that's
now.
not,
The color,
But
the
there's
color
that-
goes deeper, but the language says only the
Right.
people at front.
but I guess in my mind,
So the people behind can't, the people in front
but if the
can.
map says yes, there's a
That doesn't
disconnect.
say yes.
But Darcy,
The
you're
language
saying- Not-
If you just do it in language, like what you guys are proposing,
Right.
say you have to front,
I mean, it says it now.
yeah.
That really wouldn't be a
You
change.
understand the difference?
I do,
Okay.
what I'm trying to do is, you know how we just had like a
Yeah,
30, 45 second sort of
Right.
back, you're like, for the love of all that's holy, there's no commercially, so, it keeps coming back. That's gonna happen if there's those sections there, that like someone looks at a map somewhere and goes,
It
We're
already is.
not looking at a map, we're looking at our zoning map and then the language
The
that
language
already
that
exists.
in the code.
so
This
is what I'm talking about.
already- Right.
this does not go against here. This goes against this road. That's not the same road. I'm saying up to here to here. If they look at this and say this is Gateway Corridor, then
The language already
It
says,
it's gotta
if
be.
you are in gateway corridor on, there's two roads here, fronting on Wellington Road, Cascade Road, and Saranac Avenue.
but it's not on Saranac Avenue.
No, so
So
Darcy's
that's
saying
why they
keep the
can't do
language.
it.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. like-
So if we do that, we eliminate all short-term rentals in Raybrook. Because everyone doesn't run to Route 86. So tell me what you think of that.
How did we handle Raybrook? We just, remember we were like, oh, we forgot about it.
You said
We just-
because they were in
basically,
yeah.
they said like McKinnon's is set back. Your setbacks.
Oh, we
Yeah.
added in Route 86,
So-
yes.
Yes, there is language about. Route 86.
No, it got left out.
No.
It really
Never
didn't.
put it in there?
So
So that's
you
it.
could amend that to
For
include
the Raybrook
Route
district,
86.
which already has short-term rentals that we.
Oh, and then if they subdivided that, it would only, their front lots would be able to be a short-term rental.
Right.
Okay, as long as I'm clear, because I'm about as dense as they come. So if someone who has a much more,
Darcy, even with your language, I'm not changing my, I think, if it's in the gateway corridor,
Mhm.
it can be short-term rental.
so that's where, they see where your language is saying that, and then there's a perception, because I feel like I'm crazy, but.
No.
No, I'm not changing.
So tell me your all opinion. It really takes away the effect of Gateway Corridor now in two sections.
Which it already does.
No, in one.
No, it applies to Route 86 too. So if someone now, we can say, no, we don't change anything about short-term rental lots. Someone came in, proposed a big subdivision, one of those purple lots. Only the ones that count on 86 could be short-term rentals. Everything in the back could not.
No, but we left out the language that Darcy just read for 86.
No, but we've been applying it that way. That's McKinnon.
Yeah.
So we've been applying it because we said we just forgot it, but we applied it, you had it front.
Okay.
So if this new idea goes through, then we eliminate pretty good number of STRs in the Raybrook area.
Where?
Well, a number of them, including.
Well, yeah,
He's already
including
eliminated.
me, my sister.
You're already
Oh.
eliminated right now because you're not fronting.
Right,
Implied.
that's what I'm saying.
Implied.
Is your
Implied.
property in the gateway or is it the town residential?
He's in Gateway.
It's in Gateway.
But he doesn't front.
But this, again, this is not the place to draw the line. I mean, we can't, we're gonna end up eliminating someplace.
5 acre
I think
lots,
so.
3 acre lots.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah, so I
They're
don't
big
think.
lots in Raybrook, so
Yeah, but Gateway Quarter you can go down to like 0.1 acre
Right, 'cause
lots.
that's.
Oh, you said you didn't want to talk about like
So he's
lot
more back.
size anyway.
Right. No, I don't, I think, I'm not changing my position. I think if we get rid of that language that Darcy just read, we get rid of the implication of Ray Brook and we leave it.
You were in favor of not getting rid of things and keeping it where it was.
Not the visual, the language.
I've been sitting here and I did hear you guys say, let's not change it, let's leave it the way it was, and the way it was.
right, and we got off track, so we need to come back.
It feels like we need to accomplish interest someone from too.
Well, it depends on how aggressive the elimination, or is it going to be grandfathered in?
Well, just make Rick answer the question, we can move on. If Rick agrees that we should not get rid of the language about fronting, then you have 3 votes to move forward.
Okay.
Rick, it's up to you.
If somebody could please I'm having a hard time hearing you, so can I get
I forwarded you I got an email from the village with all the maps that are hung up here.
Yeah,
I
I have the maps in front of me.
Oh, okay.
So Rick is asking for, I guess, Darcy to read the language on corridor.
So as it is right now, multiple rental units are allowed on Wilmington Road, Cascade Road, and Saranac Avenue in the Gateway Corridor District.
With an implication that in Raybrook, it's also fronting on Route 86.
Right.
And that has been applied before without having that language.
And so the question is, do we maintain that language or change that language?
Correct.
And what would it be changed to?
It would just be removed. It would just be deleted. So anywhere on Gateway Corridor, you could have unlimited short-term rentals. And the way it stands now, it's anywhere in Gateway Corridor that fronts on a main road.
Okay.
With the intention of protecting, the reason why that was done was to protect Skunk Hollow. And you know what, maybe the reason why it was done for Raybrook too was that's what we were thinking. If it did get subdivided, it would still only be the front lots that could be short-term rentals. So you couldn't have a whole subdivision of short-term rentals.
But again,
Did I answer your question? I'm sorry.
back to our discussion about the fact that with Ray Brook, we don't know.
Yeah, I know.
We don't,
Right,
But
but
why-
the concern is, I think somebody raised it before, the concern should be that if the village eliminates, 100 short-term rentals and therefore it drives it to Raybrook, it's going to be an issue sooner rather than later.
Exactly.
If it does.
All interrelated.
Again, if it does. And
Right, if it does.
we can't, I don't know.
So that's the challenge. Does someone want to make a motion, or we take a direction on this?
I feel bad making Rick make a decision when he doesn't feel well.
Yeah, well, I mean,
We can only blame COVID.
I mean, just to reiterate, my opinion is, so we all get where we are, the gateway corridors, no exceptions, no, what Darcy read, and leave those areas that are purple unlimited. With no exceptions.
Is that your motion, or is that you just?
No, that's just restating where I am. Because, let me just add one thing.
Sure.
Sorry.
No worries.
And mainly because we're gonna have to draw some lines, and I don't think that is the place to draw.
Raybrook, or you just saying?
No,
gateway
as
corridor.
far as purple.
So, I hear you, and it's really hard because Raybrook is different.
Oh, yeah.
And it's right for opportunity and to facilitate that, whereas as we pull in, we get back into like classic from Raybrook, then we're starting, even though we were looking at North Elba holistically.
But we're trying to predict the future.
Yeah. I guess
we are trying to predict the future in some ways.
Yes.
I don't think that's a place where we should predict the future at this point.
I would say, let's be more restrictive now, and then if we do the amendment component, then we can be more surgical with the amendments moving forward after the fact. That's, whereas that we can, instead of trying to rein more of this.
Do we have a current number of rentals in these areas to put a face on it?
I have no numbers with me, and again, this is easy enough to clarify if you want with language without changing something.
Right.
Yeah, but we're arguing about whether we want
The
it
language,
there.
exactly.
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
saying,
and the thing-
the language that
one
we
thing
have is
is-
not very.
You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
that was like thought of at the last, Hail
Yeah,
Mary.
well, that's
last minute.
why it's on the last page.
I mean, Skunk Hollow, okay. We'll start there. Right now, they can't do it. However, with Abishan there, I realize it's
They
on.
can't have multiples, and they are not exempt from
90,
from the
100.
day limits.
Right.
They could have
They could have,
a
sure.
That's
short-term
okay, the
rental
multiple,
there.
you're right. See, so you're not, I mean, there's language in there, but, it's not changing a
Listen,
lot.
it is what it is.
And you've already got businesses, it's a business area. You've got,
However it comes
you've
down,
got
it does.
basically Abishan and the Adirondack store, which controls half of the road.
The brew pub.
And anyway, okay? And you've got two to three other businesses on the other side. So you're not gonna change the neighborhood in that case.
Yeah, the dollar store, I mean, there's a lot of,
Yeah, the dollar,
Back
you
of
forgot about the
Sean.
dollar store, back at the, you got an
We're
automotive
at a
thing
point
there.
now with the information that we have, we can choose the direction.
But that's, to me,
Yep.
and that's, I'm just
So
giving my case.
to wrap it up, I'm guessing Rick and Emily and Jason would like only lots on 86 or Saranac Ave or Wilmington Road to have the benefit of an STR allocation. If that's true, we can be done talking about,
That's how I feel.
And that's how I feel, because I think it's what corridor means. Corridor means it's on the road.
Agree. I agree.
so really, done deal. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here
Okay.
and
Let's move on
promote
to
this
planned
for
development.
my own.
I'm only saying that because I won, so.
So you guys understand this as far as rewriting language?
Yes.
Okay,
Tim Smith is understanding.
Yeah, well, we do.
now, is this the time for us to talk about when the change occurs? Or do you want to work through all our districts and then talk about amortizing? Oh,
Let's go through the districts.
okay, okay.
So there's
Is the
8.
question allowed?
No,
What's that?
Is the question allowed?
No,
No.
sorry.
Okay.
If we have
We can
time at
talk
the
after.
end,
No,
there's 8 planned developments, right? 8. And so 4 are proposed to be where you could have, I don't know if it's multiple, it might just be one short-term rental per property. Does anyone know the answer to that?
Just one property.
Just one per property? Which is fine, because they're like houses.
Houses are kind of.
Yeah. And what is?
What area is that in line that I checked out?
So there's 8 planned development districts. So this big one is obviously Whiteface Inn. Maybe this is an easy one, Derek.
which one is that?
Whiteface Inn.
Well, Whiteface Inn, what do you want to talk about? The fact that they have homeowner associations,
Yeah, and it's a resort.
ample parking, and has traditionally been set up for non-permanent residents. It's always been geared toward vacation. The condos, only a very small portion have permanent residents. And I think that's confined to Sandbrook and one of the other PD units in there. In my estimation, STRs fit in that setting because of ample parking, homeowner association. And I should go farther and say that homeowner associations also have the ability to limit their number of STRs within their own rulings, if you will.
A strong homeowners association.
Right. Do you see differences in what I'm saying, Darcy or Mike?
So I'm gonna throw another, which Darcy and I have already talked about this before, but not in a long time. But the one thing that's like a little bit crazy about this PD is that Chipmunk Lane is still in it, and like there's like residential areas that are still in it. I really am okay moving forward with this as on host with doing short-term rentals here, but it is odd to me that like it's another one of those weird things. Like, why is Chipmunk Lane in here? Like, think about the trainers, like how much they would complain that they were still in planned development. And we actually talked about taking this out of planned development, but decided not to. But I do agree, even on Chipmunk Lane, it's still,
Okay, I don't know if you
take it out of planned
can do
development.
that. Yeah, you can-
That was,
Rezone it.
well, that plan development was okayed by APA, so I don't know if that comes into play.
There's a lot of hurdles to take things in.
Yeah, we asked him, we had a whole conversation with Tim about everything. I am fine with this PD as it is, but I just wanted to point out, like, Chipmunk Lane really isn't part of White Face Club Resort. Like, there's no homeowners association, there's, it's just,
So the other side.
That was a 1996 designation. No,
There's a lot of homes
1976.
in there that and you know this is a fact, that private residences that do not belong to any association. And they're still in the PD, but they have no affiliation with the oversight of the club.
Right.
the planned development is much bigger, not much bigger, it's bigger than White Face Club Resort.
Right.
It has some properties
So
around it.
how-
But I still think it fits within where you can and could operate a short-term rental.
Lake Placid Lodge is included in that.
Yes.
And yes, Chipmunk and,
And sorry, not to single out White Face Club Resort, there's 2 resorts out there.
So are you proposing there should be exemptions in,
I'm
or,
proposing there should be, if you want a short-term rental, you gotta prove that you're part of the association.
okay,
Because I just
I mean, that's.
recently had a case, somebody complained it was fireworks or something.
I was gonna say that,
They called their emergency contact, who was the young lady that works in Marksville.
yeah,
On a Saturday night, they're not there. That's not a 24-hour contact. They're not responding to go do what they're supposed to be doing. And so, that's just one of many possibilities.
and one of my questions, Mike, to you and Darcy is, okay, you mentioned the fireworks complaint. In this area that you're referring to where there's no HOA, have we had multiple complaints at all?
No,
No, okay.
I mean, overall, it's a quiet neighborhood.
That's
Most
one,
people don't rent, condos rent, and they're.
Right. and that's down the road, that's one of the things we have to look at.
Yeah, there's probably only 1 or 2 rentals on Chipmunk Lane, so there's no
Right.
problems.
Right.
so it's not an immediate.
No, it's not a huge issue. I'm just saying, pointing
Okay.
out that there are homeowners that do not belong to the club, whatever, umbrella.
Right.
Okay.
That live there, that if that's the justification, that they're part of this PD and that they're, overseeing, it's not necessarily true.
Okay.
So, but it's just-
Emily, I might have missed it, but do you want to delineate the differences in some of those planned developments where there are deed restrictions, keeping STRs out?
Well, no, I mean, it's I think how you think of it is that there are planned development districts that were designed as resorts, and there are planned development districts that were designed as residential housing. And so
Okay.
that's the difference.
Yes,
And so, Whiteface, the PD is actually called Whiteface Inn though, right? I'm not singling out
I
Whiteface.
I forget what it's called.
I'll tell you in 1 second.
It might, it's definitely not called Whiteface Club.
It is called Whiteface Resort.
Whiteface Resort. Steve, even has resort in the title.
Yeah.
Always check the overlay.
And then the other one, the other 3 are Mirror Lake Inn, which is obviously a hotel, but it includes other properties, but they're all owned by Mirror Lake Inn and part of the PD. Classic Gold,
And they use as residences,
they use these as residences.
as residential uses, hotels are residential.
And then Crowd Plaza. So to me, those all fit as a resort, and I don't see an issue having short-term rentals there. And it's mostly like they're already hotels and built out.
right.
The 4 that were designed to be residential housing, single-family homes, I'll change my phrasing for Mike, are the Peaks, Fawn Ridge 2, Fawn Valley, and Mackenzie Overlook. But to Derek's point, yes, in Mackenzie Overlook and Fawn Valley and in the Peaks, there are already private restrictions in place to keep them from being short-term rentals.
Right, which we don't enforce, that has to be enforced by the PD oversight.
And Fawn Ridge 2, there's not one house in Fawn Ridge 2 yet? Other houses in there yet?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so this is all vacant, subdivided, but vacant.
So they will be allowed there.
No, I mean, they're not deed restricted out in Pine Ridge. Well, I've never seen the deeds in Pine Ridge too, but I would imagine they're not deed restricted out. But we were saying no, that they were, because this is designed to be like single family homes, so we're saying no. There's 4 that are yes, 4 that are no.
Okay, that's,
Oh, okay, I got you.
so outline those for me.
Okay, so the 4 that are yes are the resort, which is Whiteface
Resort.
Resort. Mirror Lake Inn, which includes multiple lots, but all owned by Mirror Lake Inn. Classic Gold, which again is multiple lots, but all owned by Classic Gold. And also built out except for, this is the Hampton, right?
Yeah, just on the other side of the road.
And Crown
And Crown Plaza, which includes multiple lots, but is the hotel.
and the Nose Peaks.
Fawn Valley, Fawn Ridge 2, and Mackenzie Overlook.
No, that's where the old hotel would be, that is vacant now.
So there is one big chunk of the Classic Gold, which is where the old hotel was, but I mean, it was a hotel. I think it's appropriate that it could be built into short-term rentals.
But that's in the village.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
It's like,
that's-
yeah, so like,
Yep.
yeah, so like Crown Plaza's in the village.
Yep.
Yeah, so
So
it's
those.
just Whiteface Resort, and then the,
Yeah.
Pond Valley.
so, and within the town, we have 1 planned development district that's a yes and 4 that are no's. Right?
Emily,
Okay.
back to your original point of Chipmunk.
Yes.
Are there any other residential roads or streets?
Yeah, there are, but it's like not Blodgett. Blodgett's in a different district. That may be a better question for Mike and Darcy. I just know, the only reason I know Chipmunk is because when I was on the review board, people complained about it all the time.
About short-term rentals.
No, about how they were still in the planned development district, because it's not really that, there's no rules necessarily in the planned development, so they were very frustrated that they were.
It stops at Plato,
Yeah.
which is the one that's.
Yeah.
Stops where, Mike?
It's the round red and black boathouse that's for sale right now.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, that's the last property in the PD, and then we move into North Lake residential.
Okay.
But, so it's Chipmunk Lane, and I really think it's probably only Chipmunk Lane, because this is all Overlook, which really is part of Whiteface.
And
Yeah,
it
both
is,
sides,
it's
yeah.
all residential. I don't
But
see
it,
it.
but it's, my point is that Chipmunk Lane is not part of Whiteface. though.
It's not
I don't care.
residential
I
either.
don't care, I said I'm trying.
Good.
It kind of cuts from the development.
That's what he tells.
It's only with me.
Sorry, did that answer your question, Rick? I
It
think
did.
it's Chipmunk Lane.
Yep, that did. Thank you.
Okay,
So are we okay with that, those proposals?
I think makes perfect sense. Okay. So Gateway Corridor and Plan Developments.
It's
We are-
still half an hour.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you want to do Old Military
Yeah,
now?
I sent you the map.
New military.
I don't help when I'm too short.
I recognize
Don't forget
Hey, Derek,
Yeah,
procedural question for you. When we go to approve all these, is it going to be in one vote or is it going to be by district, so to speak?
well, I think all we're doing is a general analysis now. And maybe before we wrap the whole process up, we do it in a formal resolution.
Okay,
Because I know we're gonna have, we're gonna need a session for public input, that's for sure. We're gonna be making a lot of people sit through all of our personal discussions, but we still have to listen to those, so if it's okay with this board, I'd like to do the formal part at the end. Make sense?
Yeah.
Well, then there will be, even after that, then there'll be a draft of an actual law, and
Exactly.
then there'll be public hearings on that law, and then we would vote after those public hearings.
Thank you.
So on this map, it's, so now I'm gonna make Mike happy with this one. You're right.
This is known as the bypass corridor.
Yeah, so, but I'm trying to make Mike happy, and I'm going to the base map, because on the base map, it's actually called Old Military Corridor. I don't know why it got renamed.
Everybody's trying to make Mike happy. I don't
I
know.
know.
Thanks, Rick.
Darcy too.
Darcy, she's always happy.
Does anyone remember why it got renamed?
Yeah. Oh, you got it.
Because Dean.
Oh, yeah, I just went through that email. But this is always good to.
Pedestrian corridor,
You know,
whatever you name that.
No, it makes total sense because then you can
By
kind
the
of.
end of my term,
But it
you'll
has
see
different
me with a
rules,
lot.
that's why.
We'll get you an iPad and touch it.
We don't know why.
Pinch and zoom.
Why they
Right
don't
on.
know.
So is much of this old military, new concept at all
It's
on?
the bypass to get it out of town.
I know, but it's really named Old Military, so I don't know why I changed it. I'm trying to think, I'm just trying to figure out if there's exceptions that I'm not remembering. I thought it exactly followed the district.
That's my question.
Yeah.
It kind of appears off, was that Station Street?
Yeah, so it actually is kind of crazy. It goes down,
No Pond Drive.
West Valley and down Mill Pond Drive, yeah. And so this is like the snowfields.
Yeah, okay.
So we have very small sections still within the village and the elementary, no, that's town.
Oh, yeah, the line goes in and out here. right?
Yes,
There's this no.
certainly minimal.
So there's already
Yeah.
there, right? On this side.
Something's different right
No,
here.
Shape of that.
So Emily, he's got this,
No, that's.
this is really
It's over
gateway,
right here.
and he's got it as bypass.
What is that?
There's a Pond Drive there.
So that
This is old
is,
military, this is no pond, this is the
Or
fire.
the- This is the snowfields.
Snowfields right
No,
there.
That's all right.
That's the little stream, so.
Oh, yeah. That's where they're staging, that's where they're staging for the
Yeah.
football.
Highway
Yeah,
to
okay, yeah,
George
that's
What, the
Street
very corner?
would be somewhere
No, the,
there.
well, the
We're
snowfield
talking
on
about
West
two different
Valley.
snowfields. The one on West Valley across from
Yeah.
Overlook.
That's right.
Very,
And then
That's
the one
the
behind the
okay.
firehouse.
Yes.
east of
Right
the
there.
This is the, this against the.
and then, yeah, Benmore.
Mike McKenzie is here.
Yeah.
Right, Roby's.
This is the snowfield for that.
Okay,
This is,
Roby's
Village
that
of
one,
town.
yeah.
this is,
And then-
Roby's over in here.
coming up.
Yeah.
Oh, Darcy, it's a little
Roby's right
easier to see
So-
over here, it's just a little bigger.
Oh, yeah.
He's right there.
So that's a little, that's different than,
So don't look at that.
Yeah, don't look at that one.
yeah. Well, you don't
Sorry,
even
Rick.
know what the difference is.
Well, this is the one that has been.
Well, yes, it's different.
So to get back to the gateway corridor thing though, so these could be all be short-term rentals. Because we missed a piece of gateway corridor. So this is gateway corridor, and I think there's just like one lot that doesn't run on it. Or two.
Orient me for the corridor one.
Here's West
Oh,
Valley.
so-
I mean, I'm sorry, this is all military road.
Yes,
See how these are all
Mill Pond.
disappearing right here?
yes,
That map is not correct.
okay.
Turn it over. Just look at this.
Mike's-
Throw it away, throw it away.
And you can clarify. Right, so right now, on this corridor, you're allowed to have bed and breakfast.
You cannot have a hotel.
You can't have a hotel.
Right, that's the only, I can.
And this is why I don't want the discussions about hiring somebody to stay unless it's gonna be a bed and breakfast for the, if you're doing the hosted thing only. This is all town, village residential, which I don't know why it's outside the town again. This is town residential.
So I see we're moving along, we're in the stop here.
Old military goes the whole, out to, you
But I'm
know,
just saying.
Right, but it only goes to here. I mean, this is, I mean,
No, it
Oh,
goes
sorry.
here. This is gateway corridor.
okay, yes, yes.
So,
But only on one side, on the left side on your way out.
yeah,
Right.
this is,
Burnedale subdivision.
which hasn't been developed.
Okay.
Right.
Well, yeah, there's.
Some of it,
houses there.
yeah.
Yeah, there's some.
So the proposal in Old Military Corridor, or bypass corridor, is to allow short-term rentals, but it would be limited to one per property. With the idea behind that is that like you can't have hotels out here. It is a little bit more residential in nature, so you could have a short-term rental, but only one per property.
Okay. How many are in this Old Military Corridor, bypass corridor, or whatever? How many out here are multiple? I know at least one.
There shouldn't be any.
There is one. It's right about,
At the foot of the hill? On the way down the hill?
where's
Yeah, this is
the,
where you take a left to go to the church, it's super up.
right.
This goes off the hill.
He's up in here somewhere.
Yeah, it's right about in here.
That might probably be too.
It's old.
So it's, I think it's right up, because I think it's right about there. There's one.
That's what's his name.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it. No, I don't know it. Yeah, yeah. That's, I mean,
Balsams in that area.
No, balsams I think are actually.
But he's hosted.
He's hosting.
He's hosting.
He lives there.
oh, okay.
That's why he has the multiple.
Oh, no, balsams are off here, right?
The balsams are not part of it, so it's really, again, the fronting on the road thing again.
Yeah, the
Okay.
balsams.
Balsams are up here.
Yeah, they're back in here.
Balsams are town residential.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're,
thank you.
Access points up here.
But Rick, just, this is also, we know condos and townhomes are exempt,
Cemetery.
not exempt, but,
Cemetery.
so
We
even
can
though
have
it's town
cemetery.
residential, they can still
Yeah,
have
right.
houses.
Cemeteries.
Right.
Up the hill.
Cemetery's this, the
it is.
Jewish.
Oh, that's right, this is going up the hill. This is going up
So
the
we can
hill.
have STRs in our cemetery, right?
No, so there's only, so that multiple, that's only his, and it's hosted.
And he's hosting. He lives there.
I didn't know he lived there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you've got 3 houses, 3 buildings there.
Yeah.
He lives in the main house.
Is it under one permit, or are you really getting 2 permits?
No, one permit.
So this is village, right?
Yes,
That's village.
yes.
And it had, there's also a history of having I think there's a few bed and breakfasts on this road, so.
There's only one still operating, I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Stagecoaches, and one still operating.
So this is the snowfields on Green. This
That's
is Mackenzie
That's
Road.
over.
Yeah, that's the West Valley.
The Lucy's.
Snowfield, that's the firehouse Snowfield.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was confused too, but that,
We got a lot of snow here.
I know we don't, we can't use this one in Snowfield.
It
We won't use that one.
just as a snowfield.
So when thinking ahead like you were doing, of course, I will keep bringing this up, with future development, why is the snowfield open and not protected? Is that a good question, Emily?
Yeah, it is.
Well, the snowfields, I believe the village.
Yeah,
What was that?
That's
Snowfield.
Village.
Well, that one, yeah, but not that one,
Well,
not that one.
The Lucy's on that, yeah, so it's.
I just want to see some consistency.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't-
no, I got you.
100%.
I would almost guarantee you before he develops that, he would make a PD.
Yeah, you would think so.
Okay,
No guarantees.
Well, but Old Milton, there's nothing that's at risk, because you can make a PD, make a hotel.
Or whatever, housing, whatever you want to do with it.
So by rights, it actually qualifies for short term.
Right.
Right now,
right now, that's, yeah.
but there's
right now.
nothing there. Yeah, so.
Yep.
Well,
Again,
that's,
everything qualifies, you just gotta tell me
Right.
where you're not allowed to do it if you're gonna do it.
well, I mean, that goes back
I
to.
mean, this is so the corridor goes all the way out to here, right?
So I guess
It should.
Derek's point for consistency, we would say it would front on Old Military or Mill Pond, right? Those are the roads.
Yep.
I agree
Yes.
100%.
Yeah,
On his proposal, it does stop. It
Yeah, this
follows,
stuff, yeah,
it
okay.
follows that and,
All right, so these are still town residential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're limited for size. even if
So
they were
like, for
subdivided.
instance, this one wouldn't be,
Yeah, there's 2 that get cut off.
and there's another one. This one right there, one.
There is somewhere around here, a 100-acre lot or something, what's the one that
Yeah.
Colby's rented.
no, this is,
Matt is over here.
Matt's-
So
that's over
The
here.
100-acre one
His wife is a
is
realtor.
this.
Yeah, that even.
No,
Oh, no, he owns
No, right
a
next
storage
to-
business.
Right next to Boyer's,
Oh,
the one that remember we saw the sign?
oh, is it that big?
It is.
Um,
97 maybe?
Hunter Way you're talking about.
no,
um,
you're talking the one,
This.
no, that's the one for sale, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
what
I'm-
he's talking about.
Okay, that's the one for sale.
So you-
I didn't realize he owned it, okay.
Who owns
No,
those?
I don't know who owns it. I'm saying
Okay.
Colby's wife is the realtor, she's selling.
Oh, no, that's
Jeremy
it.
Colby's wife.
No, Jeremy
No,
Colby's one.
Yeah.
That's where we got.
Okay, I gotta
Yeah,
say.
I was like, yeah, well,
Not
there's-
that, no.
Yeah, there's some like classic Colby's you have to
Yeah,
work through
yeah,
first.
yeah. I
So
gotta say.
Mill Pond is included in Old Military.
Just
Just
here.
that, so it's like a firehouse, and then the house is across from the firehouse.
It's
So-
about 4 of them.
Yeah, so those houses could be short-term rentals,
Okay,
one per property.
so then what's left? The 2 snowfields, do you want to discuss those?
I would think we would just apply.
We can only talk about one.
Okay,
That's in the village.
okay,
What's this?
And it's owned by the village.
Is this just an undeveloped?
They're kind of.
Is this where, I think this is where you go
No,
into,
no,
That's
that's,
it's
the-
Elderwood.
it's
Hospital.
Elderwood.
The hospital.
Elderwood and the
It's Elderwood
hospital.
Hospital.
oh, no, Elderwood's.
Yeah, I
This is
know, I know.
That's Elderwood right there.
No, it's Johnson.
Who owns the snowfield where you're talking about?
Going up to,
No, that's Church, when you come out Church Street.
We're talking about, the Lucy property that's across from Mackenzie Overlook.
Right, yep.
So Derek's question was, where are you concerned about that developing and not being a bunch of short-term rentals? So we were saying that it would be, you'd have to front on, if someone did subdivide it, Lucy's did subdivide it, you'd have to front on West Valley.
Hospital's here.
Okay. Yeah, my concern is that the Lucys aren't gonna be around forever.
Yeah.
As we know.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, yeah. So, and then you've got the gap where Snowberry is.
okay, town residential, so let's cap this up. There are 1 site or 2 sites that need to stay or come out.
No, there's
No,
nothing.
it's nothing.
It's just that if we're gonna be consistent, we should say it has to front on Old Military.
which would eliminate a couple of over here.
Well, this is the other corner,
Or
so we already did that.
Already did that.
What it would do, because it really is, like, that's the way the corridor was designed, so he doesn't even go back one, like, it changes already.
Right,
But it would be about this, the development of this.
And who deals with this?
The half of-
Yeah.
Whoever pays, whatever they pay more taxes.
Okay.
are we stuck?
No, myself, I'm just looking at the map
Like,
here.
but like this lot would be out, right, because it doesn't front.
I know, I'm looking at these,
Yeah, that.
there's not too many.
No, I think there's only one.
And they could be owned,
Oh, wait,
you
sorry,
know,
that's
the
one.
owner could own the front and the back.
It could.
And then they
And
can,
then they could.
I mean,
if
potentially that,
they own the same, even though they're subdividing, you can,
potentially that one.
Yeah,
or do that to make this one lot again.
they don't have to make one lot. Because there's a lot of situations where people own 2 lots, they have a house on one and the other, and they have the same lot.
So we're allowed
So
to do that.
potentially that one, that one can be looked at.
Oh, that's in the village.
Well, it's split, we don't know. That's what, as you said.
And again, it may be owned by the.
Right,
who's the front owner.
right. And then,
I mean, this is fishing game club, right?
yes,
Above all those gunshots, short-term rental.
Well, it's the ball, yeah.
The ball field
and then
fishing game.
games over here.
and then you really have to turn around, okay. So that, we have one lot,
Is this a business?
What's his name?
George Fortune.
Oh, he's in the front, who's in the front then?
Not Georgie, what's the guy who just put the garage in?
Yeah, and then, Jim, Venbing, Jim and Darcy
Macaulay,
Macaulay,
yeah, and
right? They've got the front and then George owns like the
Yeah.
parcel up behind.
that's it.
Okay, so snowfield, okay, right, okay. So then it's, everybody good with Old Military?
It's gotta be on the front, and again, if somebody owns both the front and the back, they can.
And it's going to a property,
Right.
not multiple.
But I would say if we own, I guess I'm running it, if, let's say in Raybrook, their gateway corridor, they own one that's adjacent and behind.
Yeah.
They can build it in the back. I feel like that's,
Make any sense?
I feel like it's.
If you got your house on the front lot, you own the back lot, but you can incorporate it, you could put a cottage out there, you could do.
You need to go through the process.
But
Your lots, like just go
This isn't
to.
an open discussion, so.
I hear you, but when you got your proposal, it doesn't make sense.
But we've discussed that before of adjacent.
I guess
The point is they can easily adjoin them.
Yeah,
And they
and
want
they
to
don't
want
want
that.
Okay, that's so that, but they
It's not
would
an
have,
issue, you
but
know.
they have to do
And your
that.
taxes would go up.
Well, yeah,
I think there's like a lot of situations, and we have to see.
we'd have to see it on a case by case. All you need to put in there is that you want the short-term rentals limited to the frontage on.
What's that front?
Okay, yes, there you go.
Just keep it simple, and then we'll deal with the
Then you
situations
deal
as
with
they
boundary
come.
line adjustments.
Yeah,
Okay,
whatever
yeah,
they got.
okay.
We still have 13 minutes.
Well, listen, we've done 3 areas. Do we want to leave 15 minutes for questions or tackle another
Why
area?
don't we keep going?
Okay,
I can say, because
I don't, or do we want to change, we could also change subjects, like to amortization, you know what I mean, like there's other things. Or administrative, when it gets already like 10, 15 minutes about administrative changes.
yeah.
Oh, God, no.
No.
No, okay. It's a nice thought, Emily, but I guess they're not doing it.
well, listen, I'm okay with taking these 3 and talking about timeline when they would take effect, if you wanna.
Okay.
With the different categories, because I'm sure the public hasn't even heard the different ideas.
I think the different ideas were in the presentation, but
But it would be good to just quickly reiterate.
Yeah.
I don't even know what was in the presentation. I didn't. But I mean, the ideas are basically, you could say that once the law goes into effect, they're done. If there is a short-term rental in one of the areas that we said no short-term rentals, they're done immediately. We could say they continue to operate in perpetuity, until they sell.
Okay,
You could say they can continue to operate for a set number of years and then they sunset. So those are, I think, did I miss an option anywhere? Was that Rick?
That was
That was
right.
him blowing his.
We understand, we understand.
Just me.
Sorry, I turned off the wrong control.
We understand.
we didn't see the sneeze.
Hi.
We understand.
Did I miss any?
Right, they end
They end immediately, they end at a set time of
Time.
years, or they could continue until they
Until they
sell
sell.
the property.
I think that's it.
And so one thing that we had discussed was that right now our short-term rental permits don't actually transfer. And that's outside of the norm for land use code, correct?
Correct.
So like if a hotel is a hotel, it can continue to be a hotel through multiple.
If it's a
owners.
recognized use,
You know, even if it's like if someone bought Cascade Inn does not, you can't have hotels or restaurants in rural countryside, but if someone bought Cascade Inn, we wouldn't say, you can't have a hotel or a restaurant out here. Usually land use code follows the land. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
In this case, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
No, that's just-
traditionally how it's done.
okay.
And when we did design our short-term rental law, very intentionally, we said it does not transfer with sale because we thought the situation might arise.
Yeah.
So we very intentionally said it doesn't transfer with sale. So one thing we had talked about is that we could change this so that the permits do actually run with the property like other land use code permits and the use runs with the property. But we would then say they had a set number of years, right?
Yep.
So so it's kind of like 2 changes. Change the,
So the property could change hands, but the usage is okay for that term.
yeah, so like if someone was if someone was in, I can't think of a road now, on Hurley Ave, and we said no more on Hurley Ave, but you can continue to operate for 3 years, they could sell it, and that person would still have that time frame of 3
Okay.
years.
Oh, okay.
Right,
I said that right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, that makes sense, because if you want someone to come in, they can buy it at probably still at a slightly inflated price, make their money back, and then live there eventually. That seems
Yeah.
like a reasonable on-ramp.
I think this, well, it's what we want, but there's also like a lot of legal technicalities that, like, I think it's probably mostly gonna come down to an attorney saying what is the most feasible and where we're most legally protected.
Okay.
Yes.
But that was a concept, because it would make us a little bit more legally protected, I think, that we were following the same other land use code.
Yes, I got you.
Okay.
So let's take those choices and start with Gateway Corridor. Ideas, is there,
We're not kicking any out of Gateway Corridor.
what's that?
We're not kicking anyone out of Gateway
No,
Corridor.
you sure as hell are.
Who?
Me, my sister, anyone on Old Raybrook Road?
But Derek, we didn't change the rules.
Yes,
Yeah, we did,
yes, you did.
we did.
No,
'Cause they're not
the
adjoining.
only difference,
Oh.
you guys are misconstruing, what the law says, you're exempt from, you can have multiples, and you're exempt from day limits, which are gonna go away according to what.
But I don't have road
Doesn't
frontage.
matter, you can still have a short-term rental.
Oh, that's right, because you can't have
But
multiple.
you can't have multiples, or, and again, the day limits are probably.
Right,
Yeah, Derek, the rule,
Right.
you are limited by the number of days. Right now.
Right now,
Right,
right now,
Right.
but you,
And
I
you
see,
still,
I see.
well,
and you can only have one permit.
so then I'm very confused.
Now
So am I.
I wasn't, now I,
confused.
now I went back to,
confused.
I was like,
back to what Darcy pointed out. You, want to read it again? Can you read it?
Yeah.
You'll see. Read it.
Yes, you can have multiples and you are not limited to the number of days. If you have a property in the Gateway Corridor District that is on Wilmington Road, Cascade Road, and Saranac Avenue.
But we
Okay.
just voted 3-2 to have it must join the road.
I know,
And
but-
he is not in that.
Okay, so now I'm understanding what Derek's saying, is because I guess I was forgetting that there was the difference between where he is and on fronting, like you are limited now.
I'm out.
No, but,
No,
no, now
now,
you're limited to the
now,
120
now,
days.
right now.
Yeah,
And
that's
only
right.
one.
That's right.
now.
So what happens if we change this? Are you out?
Yes.
No, he's not. By the language, you could, in other
No,
words.
no, we change it to
property.
having half frontage, he's out.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's,
But I thought we were going to say, well, I thought we were going to leave the language the way it was.
no, we voted 3-2.
They voted 3-2 and only on Route 86. And listen, I'm okay with that. That's why we're going through this process.
I hadn't thought about the fact that you could still, I guess I wasn't thinking that you couldn't then have a short-term rental, not frontage. I was thinking you wouldn't be bound by those limitations.
And it's not just me, it's 90% of the people in the Raybrook area,
See, that's,
which is a small number to begin with, and I think it's like 14. So, but listen, if
no.
If the
Well, I hadn't
Exodus,
been thinking about it this way, so just give me a moment to think about it.
No, let me interrupt you, okay?
Yep.
I think we should, like I said, I wanted to leave it, but I wanted to leave it the way it is as Darcy read. In other words, for Raybrook and Skunk Hollow, you can't have multiples. That language.
Right.
You can still have, and, and the limit we'll talk about.
don't think I don't understand,
Well, I didn't
What we
understand what
voted
you were
on.
saying.
No,
because if the exodus from the neighborhoods we want to save over here is going to create a movement toward Raybrook, it's logical. I get it. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking existing with no problems, everything fits, and we're saying, no, we don't want it.
and right now it's working with that language. And I think that's what we've got to look at.
But my middle ground argument, I kept trying to, like, I feel like this is where, like, there's supposed to be middle ground, like, where, in the middle ground now is you can't have multiple, and you're limited by the number of days. But what if we get rid of the number of days, then what are you limited by? And it creates like a whole other category, right? Like, we're trying to kind of simplify things.
Yeah, that's your limit.
And if you're limited one per property, and if you front, you can have multiple.
Right.
But it doesn't really achieve what I think what Jason and I were trying to achieve with like someone developing a property, developing those big chunks and making them all short-term rentals.
But again, you can't.
I know.
You're making assumptions.
You're defying single-family usage.
Yeah.
So what I was feeling the same sort of friction. I just think if we go a little bit more restrictive, then we can make those adjustments after that, based on whatever movement that's happening.
Well, like I said-
That's just my.
No, and like I said, I started real early on, and I've said a couple times, we're going to have to make some tough choices and draw some lines. I don't think that's the place to draw. Raybrook is not, where you've got, everything's working, as Derek said, and we want to eliminate multiples
Mhm.
in Raybrook off
The corridor.
facing, and I think that's fine.
Yeah, and I am 100%, I understand, but we can't differentiate corridor between Raybrook or Lake Placid proper, so like in the town, so that's where.
Well, we've only got two instances. We've only got 2 examples.
In Raybrook.
No, we've only got 2 areas, Raybrook and Skunk Hollow. That's the only areas of contention. All the other purple, and Mike,
We've
they'll
addressed.
say, I'm not gonna point at that anymore. I'm gonna point at that. Okay. You look at the purple, and there's only 2 areas, like I said. That's it. It isn't like it's all up and down Saranac Avenue or whatever. It's just 2 areas. And Skunk Hollow it's right now, it's at, no multiples.
Add the language that.
Right.
The corridor in Raybrook district or whatever you want to call
Sure,
it.
leave it the same. And at some point.
You gotta realize,
we've
you
got
already
to-
got campsites out there, you got HOA, or KOA, or whatever.
Lots of cabins.
Lots of
You got
cabins.
It's not gonna change the character.
No.
And if some down the road, something happens, we look at it. But I think it's working the way it is. And unfortunately, the language was implied for 86.
Oh, it's been enforced.
It's been, but I'm just saying, we added in. And you add the language in, no multiples in those areas off the road.
I don't disagree. I just find that the motivation to make any necessary adjustments will maybe not be there, as opposed to the flip side. If we want to loosen them, there may be more motivating factors to make that happen, if that makes any sense.
Listen, here's the worst thing that can happen, and the very first thing is that my property.
That's not the point.
I need to relieve myself from that.
No,
I'm
I'm not.
happy with the decision of the majority.
I
And
wasn't thinking about it, Derek.
I wasn't thinking about it either.
thinking
And
about what would
I
happen
do
to the.
not want to be the center of this meeting.
You're not. No, I'm talking, it's like you said, yours is one of many.
No,
Okay?
it wasn't, I just wasn't thinking about, like, I wasn't thinking about that that currently there's a middle ground, and we were talking about getting rid of the middle ground. And that's the part that I wasn't thinking about.
Yeah, good point. That's the thing. I leave the middle ground,
Which was just no multiple.
no multiples.
I agree with that. I think the multiples if you're not allowing multiples, I'm fine with that. What are the chances that somebody's going to buy the Perrier property and there are going to be 10 different owners? It's very, very minimal. So,
Yeah.
and that's the only way that you could put up multiple short-term rentals is if you had multiple owners, correct?
Well, or multiple buildings.
Multiple buildings.
Or one building with, like an apartment building with 5 units in it,
Right.
which we're,
Well,
or 4 units.
Yeah, that brings something. But no, that's my point. I think
There's
it's working.
a lot of options
Yeah, there is.
beyond short-term rentals out there. Hotels are allowed.
Yeah.
Well, not
Like
to
you said,
end
you
this
got-
confusing, we're at 9:30. Do we want to go till 10 o'clock or 15 minutes
We're at
more?
10:30.
10:30.
We're at 10:30. Yeah.
I have a half hour, then I have to go.
So, do we revisit it? We already are revisiting it. And do we change it? Nothing's set in stone right now anyway, even after a previous
Right.
discussion. But,
we didn't vote, we just gave our opinion.
Another straw vote.
well, no, that's the thing. Okay, I'll bring it up. Do we change our thinking originally and just add in the exception, as Darcy read it, and include no multiples?
I personally like the first option, but however, whatever the majority goes with. Because I always see that there could be adjustments made later.
So we just have to revisit later.
Yeah, I think,
Because,
yeah,
are we good,
we're always gonna have to revisit.
I'm just throwing this out and going, okay, chances are we're going to eliminate some units in this map, okay? And we can come back and revisit it, but I don't think the Gateway Corridor is the place to start.
Yeah, and so I actually, now that this issue, so I'm a little bit now more going with Dick's side here because, I know, which is crazy. I don't think I've ever.
I
But
just
just
watched
because
about 3 months ago.
but what I still think that, I don't know if middle ground is
just no multiples. Then maybe there's another aspect of it.
What's the other
I don't
aspect?
know.
Okay, no, I mean, that's
I
fine.
liked that there was a day limit, but the day limit thing isn't working. I thought that was a good middle ground, but that middle ground isn't working. I never meant to like cut out all short-term rentals from Gateway Corridor. It was just the high use short-term rentals on
Gotcha.
on the road.
Right.
Strip, yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we don't know, obviously, we don't know what we're gonna do with the days. We haven't got there yet, okay? So, but right now, I mean, that would, change a few things too,
So-
obviously.
So let's leave it all alone the way it's set for now and make the determination on what you prefer as far as timing of these decisions. Whether you like the 3-year amortizing things, will it change by area? Like on planned developments, is it immediate? Which to me makes sense.
Okay, thanks, we'll see you soon.
Oh, like if it applies immediately.
Right.
Yes.
And then to Emily's point, with the date on it, I think we need to consult and find out from our attorney,
Yes.
what's, what they think on that length of time.
It will be a bigger issue, amortizing, especially when we get into town residential. That's
Right.
where we'll have
Right.
considerable
Right, so
discussion.
that's the thing. So I think we need to have a discussion with legal and see get the input from them.
All right, then it sounds like we should wrap things up for today.
And I'm gonna think more about this middle ground. I had many like answers for the middle ground and might shut them all down. But maybe I'll bring them up to you guys.
Do we want to entertain a couple questions? We only have,
Well, you and I have a
People?
meeting.
oh, we have a meeting now?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're leaving soon, so if somebody wants to ask a question, to call us in the office a little later. Somewhere else.
So I'm gonna take a motion to adjourn. Emily, second? Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Rick, feel better.
Thank you.
So, just don't say anything.
Sorry, next to him now. All yesterday.